Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Will real estate be a key part of your success? Let's find out today from our guest, Evie Brooks. Evie, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Bill. I'm excited to be with you today.
Now, Evie, let's tell our audience first, give us an idea of your background, so fill our audience in.
I have been in commercial and residential real estate and all types of real estate projects and development since I graduated from college. I ended up in commercial real estate management and asset management right out of college for 4 years in corporate America. I left there. I went out on my own as an investor. I've never looked back. After being an investor for about 12 years, I started working with the Rich Dad, Poor Dad organization as an elite trainer, and that was in 2003. I stayed with them until 2014 when I had to leave because we were so busy in Panama, Central America, that I did not have time to continue traveling the world, teaching as an elite trainer with the Rich Dad organization.
Now, you said, I think it was 4 years after college, you got into commercial real estate.
I was in commercial real estate right out of college.
Right out of college. That seems a daunting profession. I mean, it's a tough one. It's a heavy-duty business. How did you find your way in there?
That was actually a fluke. I was a criminal justice major and was going to law school.
Of course.
And got pregnant with my first child right as I graduated from college and was extremely sick. And a friend of mine that worked with this company, the particular company that I started working with, said, I've got a job, you can come work with us. And that's how I started in real estate, and I've never looked back. It was just a fluke.
So starting out, the real estate you dealt with was here in the United States, is that correct?
It was actually in Atlanta, Georgia, off of North Druid Hills. Anybody that knows the area knows North Druid Hills. And
obviously you liked it, you stuck with it, you doing it, and this is your career. What caused you to move from the United States into another country?
Well, I had been in real estate. I left corporate America after 4 years, realizing that I was sitting on the wrong side of the desk. Everybody on the other side of the desk from me that I was contracting with was making a whole lot more money than I was with that job. So I left corporate America after 4 years, went out on my own. I've never looked back. I started investing, and I did extremely well. And so people started saying, can you teach me to do what you did? And so I started mentoring without knowing I was being a mentor to friends and family. Shortly after that, I was invited to become a guest for one of the Rich Dad organization meetings for the Rich Dad Elite Train Program. And I started teaching with them in 2003 and stayed with them until 2014. And while with the Rich Dad organization, early on, I was asked if I wanted to teach in the international market in Costa Rica. And so I did. I started teaching in Costa Rica. I started investing heavily in Costa Rica. I started my own development, 700-acre master plan community in Costa Rica. And then 2008 happened, and the big crash happened. And Panama continued to fly and continued to clip right along where Costa Rica came to a screeching halt. And so it took me about 4 years. I held on, rearranging the ship on the Titanic while the ship was going down in Costa Rica. Finally, in 2012, decided, you know what, I've got to abandon ship and go across the border to Panama. And that's how I ended up in Panama.
Now, Evie, when you say 2008 happened, just for our audience, because sometimes there's younger people or something, what does she mean? That was the recession, am I correct?
That was the recession. That was the big crash of 2008. And it did not just affect the United States. It affected many countries around the world, including Costa Rica and Panama. But because Panama has the Panama Canal and the world depends on the Panama Canal, it was able to keep going. Of course, it had some pullback, but not like Costa Rica. Costa Rica literally came to a screeching halt and has not recovered to the extent that it was prior to that. And we had a $40 million development that we had financing on through Banco General, and that came to a halt in October of 2008. And, I held on for 4 years thinking it was going to come back, and it never did. And so I finally said, enough, moving to Panama, and things have been just exploding ever since.
we all think of the real estate world like, oh, that person got rich and how easy it is for them, etc. But just as you said, for 4 years, I'm gathering that probably you had a lot of sleepless nights, if not every night was sleepless, hoping it's going to come back, hoping and seeing that it didn't, apparently. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, if you think you're going to get in real estate and get rich quick and it's going to be an overnight success, it's no different than investing in a stock and thinking that that one stock is going to make you wealthy. You've got to have many different projects, many different stocks to have some winners and some losers. You're never going to have all winners. And I just went into that knowing, you know what, this was just a hurdle. I've had great success in real estate prior to that. And since then, I've tripled, quadrupled what I was at, where I was at that time. It's just a matter of never giving up, continuing to push forward, looking for the new opportunities. There's always opportunities in every scenario. You just got to know how to find them and how to explore and develop those.
Now, in your notes, you talk about a positive cash flow property and return on investment. And of course, this is a show on success. We talked about perhaps real estate would be an avenue for many of our listeners. And of course, we have an expert today on it, so we're going to tap into you. Explain what you mean by positive cash flow property and a return on investment.
Well, let me just start by saying I never look at a project anymore that only has one stream of income. I'm looking for multiple of 2 streams or 3 streams of income from any project that I get into. So positive cash flow is just one of those streams of income. So I am looking for, and I have a set number that I'm looking for on any particular investment. It's based on the amount of the investment, cash on cash return. So I'm looking for a specific amount. I've got a formula that I work with to have cash flow on a particular project if that's one of the streams of income. And so that could be a short-term rental. It can be a long-term rental. It could be a medical rental. It could be a corporate rental. There's all kinds of different things. I could have multiple different streams of rental incomes on a specific property. I may have land and I may have cattle on the land, or I may have trees that I'm able to take off in topsoil. So I'm looking for all kinds of different types of income that can come from any particular property or project that I'm involved with.
Is there a number? We're not looking to know your proprietary information, but if you're looking, or you would tell our audience, if they're looking at a property, what do they want to make on that property? And for the beginners, and that's most of us out here, what are we looking to invest if we're talking about land in Panama or maybe even in Atlanta? What are we looking to invest, and how much of a return should we think in our minds that we want to get each year in order to be successful?
Well, I'm looking for, and I still do projects in the United States, but right now I'm very, very cautious. Panama is still in a great place compared to the flying prices here in the United States and the over fair market values and the multiple bids and offers on every project and people paying $30,000 and $40,000 over value. One of my streams of income is buying right with equity in the property. So I'm not going to pay over fair market value for any project. I'm looking for a project that I walk into equity on the front end. That's one of the streams of income that I'm looking for in addition to cash flow. And so in Panama, we've not had that ridiculous, explosive demand for property so that people are in a feeding frenzy. So when I'm looking for a return on investment, it depends on the type of investment, but anywhere from 7 or 8% on the low end up to 15 to 17% on the high end. And it depends on the type of strategy that you're utilizing and what you're looking for. As far as some of those projects are going to be get in, get out projects where I have a guaranteed return on investment of, let's say, 11%. And I'm going to be in the deal for 24 months. So there's a lot of different strategies that we've put together for our investors. And we walk them through. This is an A to Z project from A to Z. We never abandon them. We never walk away, and they continue to do deals. They'll get in, they'll get out, they'll roll it, do it again. And so it depends on if people are looking for short-term, mid-term, long-term, or even legacy investments as to what the goals are, what they're wanting to accomplish. Of course, there's going to be investments that are going to be a lot lower risk. That's going to have a lower return on investment than a little bit higher risk type of investments that will potentially pay out a much higher return on investment. So every single individual client that we work with is a different case scenario. There's not one size fits all for anybody. And I sit down on an individual basis with every one of our clients, and we'll go through what they're wanting to accomplish. We start at a 5-year basis. We back into it from that and determine what is in their portfolio, what are they wanting to accomplish, and how do we get to that goal.
Evie, at this point in the show, would like to remind our audience that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Evie Brooks. And Evie, if someone is interested in knowing more about investments, being part of this, getting involved in real estate, can you give us your website and how they can learn more?
Absolutely. Evie Brooks Panama .com is one of the websites, which is just an intro website. And then to get more information, My Panama Vacation Realty.com. So both sites is a great place to start.
Now, the second one, MyVacationRealty.com, sounds like a place where I would go and rent a house for a week or a month or maybe a year. Is that what that's about, or am I going in the wrong direction?
Actually, MyPanamaVacationRealty.com does have rentals. It has the short-term rentals, long-term rentals, but it also has information on our programs, our VIP tours. We do boots on the ground, educational training about Panama, becoming an expat, investing internationally, diversifying your investment, buying a second home, vacation home, or a forever home. So there's a lot of information on there, but both of these sites are just created to start the information process, and then we start working with you on a more of a client consulting type basis to see what it is that you want to accomplish, where are you, and how do we get you to where you want to go.
Now, if I'm hearing this correctly, and just as the average person out there might be listening, this seems like a way that we can get into real estate if we want without jumping off the mountain and going the full route. In other words, buying it ourselves. We could invest or be part of a group. Is that what your organization does?
We do. We do a combination of all kinds of different avenues, strategies, investment programs. I think the thing that is so exciting is that people can invest in Panama. Most people think that investing internationally is very daunting, but it's not. In Panama, it's very simple. It's easy. As long as you have a passport and an address, you can invest sight unseen. Get the contract, sign it, send it back via scanning it or emailing it, faxing it, however you want. And developers in our program, we have investment programs where they can put down 10, 20, or 30% non-recourse loans, and there's no qualification and no time delay in being able to do the deals. So we vet the deals, we vet the developers, we find projects. Only projects that I'm willing to invest in that project or with that developer do we ever bring to the table. If it's not something I'm willing to invest in, I'm not going to bring it to my investors. And once we do that, we have sometimes we may only have 3 or 4 in any particular project, and we may have 15 or 20 in a particular project because we are able to get those properties at below the fair market value. We're able to get developer financing on them, and it's just a very simple, easy process. And yes, when you own that property, you do get title to it, just like in the United States.
So I have so many questions and I don't know which one to ask first. So if someone wanted to join with you in this, they would actually be on a deed or be an owner of a piece of property in Panama.
That's correct.
And that might be for income producing, not that they want to go sit on the beach or get a boat. Merely now, what is the advantage? They might say, I could buy property in the Hamptons. I could buy an apartment house in Brooklyn or land upstate. What's the advantage of going to Panama to do all this?
First of all, for what you're getting, comparing apples to apples, you're going to be getting for what you would spend in New York or the Hamptons or anywhere like that, probably 4 times the bang for your buck. In other words, I have a $600,000 property. I have a $200,000 property in Panama. And both of those you could anticipate would be 3 to 4 to maybe 5 times more expensive in the areas you're talking about, be it Los Angeles or Montreal, Ontario, Canada, Hawaii, wherever. That's the first thing. Second thing is what we call OPM, other people's money, leveraging your money. Non-recourse loans, meaning that you don't have to put up anything for collateral other than that property itself. So you have so many advantages. And my number one favorite is the fact that you may be buying a $250,000 or a $500,000 property, but you're only having to put down, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 to be able to get in that. So you're leveraging the value of that property without having to pay the full amount up front. And getting approved for a loan, as long as you can put down the down payment, you're approved.
Okay. Sounds good to all of us. It sounds like a way that if someone wants to find out more about real estate or perhaps get into it, or maybe has relatives in Panama or an interest in it, that they could be part of this and at least learn some of the ropes and some of the lessons you've learned. What have you learned, if you want to call them secrets? Our show is called The Secrets of Success. But what lessons that either through your teaching, your experience, your life in real estate and in business, have you learned that have helped you with this and made you successful?
First is that sitting down and reading a few real estate books definitely is not going to give you the knowledge and the experience that you need to have success. That's how I started out. In my very first 4 properties is I went and read a few books, and I went out and invested in property at fair market value. I didn't lose the properties, but I didn't make any money on them. But I did learn a lesson that I needed a lot more education, and I needed a mentor that could really help me learn the ropes. That's one. And the second thing is surrounding yourself with a lot more people that know more about your business than you do, where you create a powerful, what we call a power team. And that power team really is ultimately responsible for the success of your business. And why not tap into someone else and a lot of other people's knowledge that has a lot more knowledge than you do? And that's the 2 things that I could tell you that have been the greatest components to the success that I've had in this industry.
It certainly makes sense because, again, there's people out there who specialize in things. And I guess like most of us, we would go up and say, how much is that house? And it's $100,000. And you would probably start negotiating and we would think we have to pay $100,000. And maybe
exactly
that's the beginning of the game and getting the better rates and everything else that's included. Typically when someone, and I'm meaning yourself, you get involved in the property, how long is the hold period? Are you buying it for a 40-year term to get the rents, or are you buying it to turn it over in 3 years, 5, 7?
Absolutely not. I am not in the long-term investment game. I do have some legacy investments, but most of everything that I purchase with the intention of holding 5 to 7 years. I get in, I get out, I take the profits that I've made from that, I roll it, I do a couple more properties, and I just continue to build that portfolio. And by doing that throughout the years, I have a substantial portfolio throughout the United States and Canada by just rolling and expanding. I call it packing the pipeline. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I teach people to do. And it's been a very successful process.
Evie, a lot of people, myself included, we drive around now and we look and shopping centers where there were stores before, there's a vacant sign and it's, the windows are hazed over or papered over, etc. And of course, we read in the paper every day, how are people going to pay their rent through the pandemic, lost jobs, different opportunities that are gone. How has that affected your properties and life in Panama? Well,
it has actually improved our life in Panama because when this all started and I knew I couldn't travel to Panama, I thought, what in the world? Boy, I have become an expert at webinars and podcasts because we stay on the computer with our clientele all the time. But what happened was so many people started wanting to diversify those investments and get some of their assets, if not a majority of their assets, out of their home country. And I'm not just talking about the United States or North America. I'm talking about Israel, South Africa, Germany, Australia, Austria, you name it, London. People are looking to protect what they've worked so hard for because they see major taxes coming down the pike. And many of these countries' governments are talking about taxing assets that they've already been taxed on previously. And so a lot of people are looking for diversifying those investments, securing them in a hard asset in another country that somebody can't come pick up and carry away. And a lot of people are looking for anonymity and, legal, ethical processes, but being able to just secure what they worked so hard for.
Now, if someone came to you and said, I want to put this in, are these real estate investment trusts or are they corporations or partnerships or how would you term them?
We do not do REITs in trust. What we do is we work with individual people, and we have the power team members that we work with that help to decide what's the best structure for them, whether it be having a revocable trust that's the beneficiary for their LLCs that's held in the United States, or if they want to set up an LLC or a private investment foundation in Panama, or they may go to a different country, Switzerland or Belize, and set up different types of structures there. But we work with each person on an individual basis to see what they want to accomplish. And then we have those power team members to tap into to be able to help them accomplish what they want to accomplish.
Evie, once again, I'd like our audience to know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Today we're speaking to real estate investor Evie Brooks. She's telling us all about the real estate world in Panama. And Evie, can you tell us the website where we can get some more information?
Absolutely. EvieBrooksPanama.com and My Panama Vacation Realty.com.
And if you didn't get a chance to get that down, once again, before we wrap up the show today, we will ask Evie that information. So if you want to get a pencil handy, it's always good to write it down. Tomorrow you might be thinking about it and saying, gee, I wish I copied that down, and you'll have it. Evie, again, people might say, why Panama? There's a lot of countries that you could have picked. Why did you pick Panama? What's so good about that? What attracted you?
Well, initially I chose Costa Rica. And because of the major crash of 2008, Costa Rica was a tourism-only country. And when you're in a tourism-only country and you have a 2008 recession hit or you have a pandemic hit, you're in trouble because you don't have that tourism market. But in Panama, although they still had, they felt the effects of both 2008 and coronavirus, they did not come to a screeching halt. They continued to move forward. Why? Because you got the Panama Canal. You've got the Cobre copper mines. The Cobre copper mines have been under construction and preparing for actual mineral production for quite some time now, but it started right before COVID, and it's projected that the next 40 years is going to produce more revenue from the Cobre copper mines than the Panama Canal. So when you have that and you look at a country that had a GDP after the 2008 recession up until 2020 when COVID hit of an average of 6+ percent all the way up to over 11% on an annual basis in many years. And they're projecting over 9.5% next year in 2022. You've got a real opportunity. You want to be in a country where you've got the opportunity for things to continue to thrive and to move forward. And that's what Panama brings to the table. It's not just a tourism-only country.
Are you still involved in investments in other countries and or the United States?
I am. I still have a lot of investments in the United States in multiple different states, and I also have property in Costa Rica. But I have been consolidating and moving things primarily into Panama. The majority of my holdings now are in Panama.
Obviously, you must feel comfortable doing that, but I was just going to say to you, is it a good idea to spread things out? Because where economies, it could be New York is on a downside, but maybe out west it's stronger, or in the south. And times change, that ball moves in different parts of the country and the world. Is it safer to spread out your investments? And especially if you're going to be in another country where maybe there's political change or just climate change that could affect some of the properties?
Absolutely. Diversification is the key to success, not only in real estate, but in anything, in stock market, whatever. And so I have properties in the Midwest in multiple states. I have it here in the Southeast. I also have properties in Panama, but multiple different strategies. So I may have a get in, get out government subsidized guarantee program. And then I may be in the agricultural, and then I'll be in pre-construction, and then I'll be in the long-term rentals and short-term rentals. And so I'm in a multitude of different strategies in addition to multiple locations geographically.
Evie, let's just say I'm your competition. I don't know if you have competition or if someone who does something similar, but most businesses do. What are some of the questions you would advise our audience that if they're thinking of getting into real estate this way, in other words, being partners with somebody or they're offered an opportunity, what are some of the questions they should ask to be sure, or numbers to look at, whether it's return on investment or positive cash flow, et cetera? What should they be looking at before getting into something?
Well, first and foremost, you need to vet the people that you're working with. What is their history? What is their background? What does their portfolio look like? How much money are they making in that industry? How much success have they had? If it's a developer that you're working with, you're going to want to make sure that the developers have been established. They've been in business for a long time. They haven't had projects that have gone belly up, that they've had great success in what they've done. You want to also make sure that anything that you do, you're comfortable with the type of investment that you're investing in. It's something that you personally are wanting to accomplish. So if you're like needing to make monthly cash flow, then you definitely are not wanting to get into a project that's not going to pay anything for the next 3 years or 5 years or 7 years before you begin to see a return on investment. So you have to be very cautious about making sure that your goals align with whatever the projects are going to be doing.
I always look at it from the other side of the coin. I try to find what mistakes other people made. That seems to resonate with me. So I'm going to ask you the same question. What are some of the typical mistakes that a real estate investor might make? And this can be anyone. I'm not talking about just necessarily with your business, but if they look at a property in Brooklyn, in Florida, maybe out west, things that we should be aware of and perhaps avoid a mistake that either you've seen or maybe you've made. You don't have to commit to that, but we've all stepped over a line someplace and made a mistake and learned from it. What can you advise
I've made a
us?
lot of mistakes, and I'll tell you, if it weren't for the skint knees and skint elbows, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, because no one's going to go into this and not make mistakes and not learn from those mistakes. You have to do that. But my suggestion always is working with somebody that has done it before you, that can mentor you, that can help you avoid a lot of those mistakes. It can help save you financially. So you definitely want to do that. But some of those mistakes are jumping in and not knowing what you're doing, being undercapitalized, not having the correct guidance or education. A lot of people literally, and I did this, think that they can read a few books and go out and start becoming a professional real estate investor. And I'm going to tell you, that's just not the case. You really need to be working with somebody that can help you save a lot of money and prevent you from spending things. Like, we'll have people come into Panama all the time that are coming because they want to relocate to become an expat. And they'll come in and they'll try to figure everything out on their own because they're afraid to spend an extra $1,500 or $3,000 to get someone that knows the lay of the land and the legal aspects of it. And then they'll end up spending an extra $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 doing things that were not necessary to begin with. So I just think people need to understand it takes money to make money. Don't be afraid to get the right people that can help you accomplish your goals. And you're going to have a lot greater experience and success on the back end.
That's a great point. The legal lay of the land, because obviously some of the laws and rules, et cetera, are going to be different in Panama. You need someone to tell you what's going on and how it's interpreted. And what might look good in New York or Atlanta or California may not be the same in Panama. Evie, thanks so much for helping us today and putting us on the right track. I'd like our audience to know that our guest has been Evie Brooks. Evie, would you tell us once again the website if people are interested?
Absolutely. EvieBrooksPanama.com or MyPanamaVacationRealty.com.
Either way, it might be good to take a look. Maybe you just go on a vacation, or this may be the start of your success in real estate. Evie, thanks so much for being with us today. We'd like to thank you for helping us and in guiding us in real estate, and ask our audience to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.